When I first made this video 2 months ago, I was trying to prove to a couple of friends of mine that I had a legitimate reason for disagreeing with the 2012 NBA Finals. The beginning dialogue was to poke fun at them for calling me and anyone else a hater for not agreeing with the nonsense we call basketball. I was not only disgusted with the flopping the Miami Heat did, but also teams including OKC, the Spurs, etc. But I know you're wondering why I picked on the Heat. Well, first off, the Miami Heat are now the NBA champions. They are now the new representatives of the NBA throughout the world, the public figures of what basketball is today. And secondly, they have three of the greatest players in LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, who don't need to flop and complain to win a championship. And to stress it to those idiots who called me a hater, I think LeBron James is one of the greatest players in the NBA today. And I'm not trying to take everything completely away from him, just a piece of it. And like I said, I made this video 2 months ago. You took time out of your day to come by and complain about my video. Who's really the hater and doesn't have a life? So calling me a Miami Heat hater, OKC lover, and that I don't know basketball makes me feel apathetic. It's obvious you can't read, comprehend, or need any rational explanation your tiny little brains can think of to ease your mind about my video. To those who are still confused about where I was going with this video, I would be happy to explain in detail why I chose the clips I did. By the way, there's a question mark behind the title rigged because I'm questioning if the NBA's rigged, not stating that it is. LeBron's face clearly shows that he made a mistake when calling it the playoffs, so he tried to cover it up. Whether or not it was an accident or something deeper, I leave it up to you and your research to decide. Now, let me explain to those who feel that I'm biased why I chose these particular clips. As you can see here, LeBron traveled. No one hits the ball. Ibaka even signals to the ref that he's traveled. But apparently, you saw OKC block the ball. Okay, there's been a lot of controversy over me calling them flops, which you can see Mario Chalmers staggering after a play, which I will get to later. Offensive fouls using your forearm to create space is very subjective. LeBron James did it to Harden in Game 3, and Wade did it to Fisher in Game 5. Right here, I question whether or not Kevin Durant got fouled. A question, not a statement, you idiots. With this next clip, I question whether or not Collison got fouled. A question. I felt if this was the other way around, Dwayne Wade would have got some call because of his star treatment. The reason why I use the word flop on most of these falls and staggers because it's too excessive to have different names for them. What would you want me to call them? Overselling contact 1? Overselling physical contact 2? And the flop is not legitimate when the ref calls it. I'll explain that later. In this clip, James Harden didn't foul Dwayne Wade. He barely touched him when he was on the floor and pulled his hand back when he was in the air. And if you know basketball, on drives to the basket, a shooting foul will only be called if contact occurs after the offensive player has begun his shooting motion, not after he's initiated his leap toward the basket. Just look at Battier. This is a perfect time for me to explain the rest of the flop. You're giving the flop too much value by saying it's only a flop when the ref calls it. When it's a dirty move to oversell contact, whether you stagger or fall to put your opponent in foul trouble, whether the ref calls it or not. It's overused to the point where we don't even know now if it's intentional or unintentional. Here's a perfect example. LeBron James hooks Ibaka's arm, dragging him to the ground, causing Ibaka to receive the personal foul. Here's a replay so you can see it much closely. Ibaka had his hands up as LeBron James hooks his arm and drags him to the ground. All I see right here is a three-way group hug. If anything, Bosh should get called for the illegal screen. As you can clearly see right here, Bosh is holding Durant, Durant is holding LeBron, and LeBron is holding Bosh. There is no unnecessary illegal physical contact right here, just good, hard basketball. And once again, Kevin Durant is in constant foul trouble, which he hasn't been this entire playoff series. Do you honestly know what that does to a player and his team who are trying to put defensive pressure on their opponents, but get called for every little love tap? Look, every team takes charges. Miami, OKC. But Miami did it so much it got annoying. Just the smallest tap and the Heat were hitting the ground as if they got tackled. Udonis Haslem blocked Derek Fisher's shot, but he also got his shoulder with it. You can clearly see the fluctuation in Derek Fisher's shoulder as he gets hit. The commentator even said it was a foul too. It's funny, Miami Heat fans complain about fouls just as much as everyone else, especially fouls that are their own team's fault. It's clear with this play right here, it was off the back of the backboard instead of the bottom of the backboard, because if it was off the bottom, it would have bounced straight down instead of on a diagonal angle. But some of you probably didn't pay attention in geometry class or science class when they talked about scientific law, the laws of physics. Yeah, Kevin Durant could have been late. He could have been on time too. What I think is funny, the ref who calls the foul. Good old Joe Crawford. Chris Bosh used to be one of my favorite players. Aggressive, high energy. But now he's resorted to flopping. Like I said, questions are not statements. I'm only displaying the possibility of it being a foul. Probably wasn't. Oh yes, and my stats are correct. I went to the box score, I triple checked them and double checked them. For all you youngsters out there, going to the line 6 more times than any other team does affect the game. That's 12 extra more points per game. Like I said, the lightest touch and they fall down. Chris Bosh is too big to be falling down from the slightest touch. Kevin Durant went straight up. Bosh went straight down with that love tap. Now this is what you call taking a hit from a fast approaching player. Oh, right here, this is hilarious. Dwayne Wade tries to force contact. He stands there for a minute, then looks at the refs. This is just ridiculous. These are just two players struggling to get the ball. And a foul on OKC. Really? Really, Bosh? They just don't let these athletes play good, hard basketball, which teens and most people in their early 20s don't know about because they were too young to know the difference. And those who do know just adapted to this diva style of athletics. Oh, this is so hilarious. This doesn't even need a breakdown to what happened. Some players are extremely popular, having so much star power that they receive anticipated fouls by the refs, which is why it has some people questioning whether or not the NBA is rigged. In all honesty, it's not a bad question or statement to think. To understand what I mean, check out the video, NBA Refs Cross the Line. Officiating is difficult, but how much exemption can we give the refs by always using the excuse of them being just human? Especially when there's instant replay to review critical times in the game, which I noticed wasn't utilized this series. Okay, when is it alright to shoulder rush your opponent while going up for a layup? To boot, Kendrick Perkins wasn't even in a restricted area. This probably can go under the argument about offensive fouls being subjective when using your arm to create space. That pretty much looks like a foul by Bosh before it's a foul by Perkins. And this is just nasty. You lick your hands before touching the ball? Mario Chalmers is the best at acting as though he's been fouled. You clearly see he runs into Durant, oversells the contact so Durant can get the reach-in foul. Here goes Battier falling all over the place again. Let's see it again. His flopping was probably good for OKC's offense, bad for Miami's defense, but it destroys basketball as a whole. To all the idiots out there who had a problem with this clip, I assume this was the rip move that Stu Jackson, the league's vice president of operations, was talking about, which most say Kevin Durant made famous. But even if it isn't, Wade still traveled. He stops, abandons whatever pivot foot, then jumps into Harden to force the contact. It's funny how people can see evidence but still be subjected to it. For example, this clip right here. This is clearly a setup flop. You clearly see Sean Battier push Derek Fisher into LeBron James as LeBron James steps out to set up for the flop. Yes, flop, not charge, flop. Do you honestly think the 5-time NBA champion, the veteran, the flop master himself, Derek Fisher, didn't realize that that was a setup flop afterward? Like I said before, you are giving the flop too much authenticity. It's not a flop because the ref calls it. It's when you oversell, overreact physical contact just to get your opponent in personal foul trouble, whether the ref calls it or not. The Miami Heat did a great job at making OKC look like a habitual fouling team. It's hard for any team to keep their poise when the officiating is not in their favor. Look at Miami in 2011 against the Mavericks. In those 15 playoff games, the Miami Heat outscored their opponents by 221 points at the free throw line. But once they got to Dallas, all bets were off. Here's another thing. Two players can't fight for position on the floor like the athletes that they are without the referee blowing his whistle. And guess who gets rewarded? 6'8", 240-pound LeBron James. Really? OKC couldn't win for losing. They tried, but whatever they did got them in foul trouble. And when you're in foul trouble, it completely destroys the chemistry of the game for you. It completely dissolves your momentum. Most of you who play basketball like myself would know this. I am 6'6", 213 pounds. Most of you aren't even tall enough to reach past my Oh, and this is a controversial clip too. It seems as though Russell Westbrook has the ability to bend the laws of physics and adjust his body in mid-air to flop. According to Heat fans and supposed unbiased fans, Mario Chalmers had nothing to do with pushing Russell Westbrook's legs from under him. Chalmers was trying to alter his shot by nudging him a little. Derek Fisher grabbed the rebounds, but Haslam pushed him. But Derek Fisher flopped so much, who cares? On this next play, Durant was hit in the arm by Wade. Just replay it a couple of times. I think Wade wanted to get called for the foul. Bosh knew this was a critical time in the game, and if he messed his play up, he could give OKC a chance to come back. Kevin Durant got there in time. Bosh didn't see him. He flopped so he can get the call. Just look at Chris Bosh's head bobble as he tries to oversell the contact. In this series, OKC did not go to the line more times than the Miami Heat. I double and triple check the box scores. And if you don't believe me, go to NBA.com and check them yourself. Like I said, I made this video months ago, and I congratulate the Miami Heat and LeBron James for winning his first championship. Do I respect it? Not so much. Until the flopping goes away and they stop complaining and play like the great players they are, I will give them full respect on any championship they win. Until then, For the idiots who comment saying people wouldn't be complaining if they didn't have instant replay, they established instant replay to see calls they may have missed. There are cameras all over the arenas, in every arena. Look, I love basketball, so I love giving my analysis, but it doesn't go beyond that. I don't hate LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Bosh, etc. because I don't personally know them. Basketball is just an extension of who they are. It's their job. You're the ones taking it too seriously. It's funny, most of the comments are from young adults and kids who weren't even old enough to see Magic Johnson play against Michael Jordan in his prime, or Michael Jordan play against Kobe Bryant in his prime. So keep hating on my video idolizers. While you're still complaining about a video that'll be 4 months old, I'll be watching the NBA, enjoying the new season, the new rules, and the new teams.